Jim had it coming, the Gunt thought to himself as he drove along the Minnesota highway. Jim had made fun of him on the internet for the last time. Now was the time to end it. The Gunt checked himself in the mirror. Over the past several weeks, he had trained hard for the IRL Bloodsports that was about to transpire, and had lost over 30 pounds. But somewhere along the way, he had gained it all back. He liked to imagine that the journey to Minnesota had led him to unexpectedly regain his pounds of fat. Standing at 5'1" and weighing over 300 pounds, the Gunt liked to think of himself as a tall, powerful, intimidating figure. He had made a name for himself in the world of internet bloodsports by going lower than the lowest of his enemies. He had screamed his way onto the scene in 2014 by pushing a number of conspiracies onto his audience, and that fame and wealth brought him power and women. For the past 8 years, he had spent his life blowing cocaine off of hookers all over the world, been married and divorced, and had even stolen the girlfriend of a certain fat degenerate who was riding shotgun next to him in the car at that very moment. Jim has had it coming for years, Digigirl said, as she applied pounds and pounds of makeup to her face to try and make herself look less disgusting. I'm glad you're going to kick his ass. The Gunt nodded as he chomped on the large cigar in his mouth. This ends today, he said. Jim is gonna die. The Gunt sped right past a couple of police officers sitting in their car, munching on donuts. They ignored him as he accelerated, diving between cars on the highway as he approached his destination, Jim's home. Earlier that year, the Gunt had made tens of thousands of dollars on a viral video in which he confronted one of the internet's most famous celebrities in person. The money had immediately been squandered on drugs, gambling, and international travel, and the Gunt was eager to repeat his success. Jim had to die, and it would be by his own hand. Turn left here, honey, his Digigirl said. Don't tell me what to do, woman, the Gunt said crossly as he swerved onto the turn, slamming into another car as his car let out a loud, screeching noise. The car rolled into the small Minnesota town at an incredibly speed. The Gunt yanked on the wheel, and the car slid to a stop right in front of his destination, Jim's driveway. Both the driver's door and the passenger side door slid open, and the Gunt and Digigirl stepped out onto the street. This is where he lives? Digigirl asked disparagingly. What a dump. And he lets the homeless sleep on his lawn. The Gunt snickered as he punted at a rather large tent pitched out in front. Is he home? Digigirl asked, as the Gunt waddled his way up to the front door. I mean, if he isn't, we burn the place down, the Gunt said, as he flicked the used cigar at the tent, and wait for him to show up. A car came up from behind them. They turned, half expecting to see Jim angrily shouting at them, but instead a laughing internet attorney stepped out of the driver's seat. Take good care of my wife, he shouted to the large black man in the driver's seat. The mean tipped his hat, smiled, and then sped off. Hey, Gunt, buddy, the internet lawyer said as he approached them. It's good to see you again. Same here, the Gunt grunted. I didn't realize that you lived this close. Oh, I wouldn't have missed this for the world, the lawyer said enthusiastically. I'm going to get so many super chats when we go live. Ralph spit. I'll be getting the super chats. You can't stop me from going live, the lawyer reminded him. The instant the fighting starts, I'll be recording everything. I'll beat your ass and force you to stop. Then your audience can come to MY stream. The lawyer's smile never faded. Well, if you kill Jim, you're going to need a lawyer present. The Gunt glowered. Digigirl leaned forward. I'll get the stream taken down, she whispered. Just focus on the fight, okay? The Gunt nodded. He took his first step onto Jim's driveway. Not one more step, motherfucker. The Gunt stopped. The tent suddenly flapped open, and a large, obese man stepped out onto the grass. He straightened himself to his full height and glared down at the Gunt with an evil eye. Digigirl gasped. "It's him," the lawyer said, the smile fading from his face. "The King of Kino." The Gunt glared hatefully at one of his most hated enemies as the King of Kino stepped off the yawn and onto the driveway. "I'm not here to fight you, you fat fuck," the Gunt said as he took an angry step forward. "I'm here for Jim. And I'm here for you," the King of Kino said. "I'm sick of your nonsense. Gunt, you've had it too good for too long." The Gunt straightened himself to his full height. "Do you want to die here, motherfucker?" the Gunt demanded. "Do you?" the King of Kino whispered. And the two large men charged at each other. The Gunt wrapped his arms around the King of Kino and lifted him up and above his head. Although he had no trouble lifting the king, however, his sheer size and weight was too much to bear. He collapsed, the King of Kino falling on top of him with a mighty crash. The concrete on Jim's driveway cracked from the sheer force of the blow. Digigirl let out a scream as the lawyer, perhaps sensing that he would not get nearly as many super chats if he stood idly by, leapt into the fray. With a mighty kick, he knocked the King of Kino away. "That's for crashing my livestream last May, you fat fucker," the lawyer snarled. He cast his eyes downward to his phone. "Oh, I have my first super chat. Hang on." The King of Kino whirled back around and caught the lawyer in the face with a mighty punch. The lawyer whirled back, spinning wildly through the air until he slammed into the side of a neighbor's house. The Gunt got to his feet and again grabbed the King of Kino, this time throwing him to the ground. Again, the concrete cracked, but the King of Kino grabbed a broken piece of concrete, ripped it out from its place in the driveway, and stabbed it into the Gunt's leg. The Gunt cried out in pain as the King of Kino punched at his knee, knocking it out. The Gunt staggered on one leg as the king stood up, grabbed his neck, lifted him off the ground, and pile-drove him into the concrete. Digigirl let out a shocked gasp of rage and surprise. She glanced at her phone and then became excited. "Oh wow, we have a lot of viewers." The Gunt grimaced. His head had been completely buried into the concrete. He struggled vainly, trying to free himself, as the King of Kino reached out a hand and grabbed hold of his leg. "R.I.P." The Gunt let out a cry of pain as the King of Kino tore his leg off below the knee. "R.I.P." The Gunt let out another cry as the King of Kino ripped off the other leg. The King of Kino grabbed hold of the Gunt's pants and ripped them off. He reached for the penis, intending on ripping that off as well, before stopping and staring at it. It was so small and insignificant, it would be more humiliating to leave it untouched. "Fuck you, you asshole," the lawyer said angrily as he came back to the battlefield. "You can't show nudity on stream? I guess you won't be streaming this then," the King of Kino told him. "No super chats for you." The lawyer let out an insane scream of rage and threw himself at the king. The king had to back away from the Gunt to defend himself from the lawyer's assault. "Why are you such a Gunt guard?" the King of Kino asked, annoyed. "Why are you protecting him?" "Because he makes me money, that's why." The Gunt adjusted what remained of his body weight and ripped his head out from the concrete. He flopped his body onto the driveway and grinned. "Tell him, buddy," he crowed. "We should sue him for damages." The lawyer stopped. He cast a look back at Gunt, questioning. "Like a lawsuit?" "Yeah," the Gunt said. "It's an open and shut case. All you would have to do is take the case." The lawyer had already turned away from him. "No, sorry, no can do," he said. "I have a family vacation planned. I don't have time to take on any new cases right now. Sorry." The Gunt's smile faded. "Now, wait just a minute." "Goodbye," the internet attorney said. He ended his live stream and then walked away. Only the Gunt and the King of Kino remained on the battlefield. The driveway had sustained a lot of damage, and the home itself had suffered from the sheer force of the blows. It had looked as if a tornado had blasted through. Yet Jim himself had not arrived. "Where the fuck is he?" Digigirl demanded, glaring at the house. "We haven't gotten nearly as many donations as we should have. We need that Meadowcur money." The Gunt stared up at the house hatefully. He had already completely forgotten that he had already lost the fight before it had even begun. The fact that Jim had failed to appear during the fight meant that he wouldn't get nearly as many super chats as he should have. A shadow at the window of the house was staring down at him. The window opened. "Hey, losers," Jim said. "Welcome to my house. I'd invite you in for a drink, but I don't want you stinking up the place." "Jim," the Gunt crowed, "calm down and fight like a man. Why don't you walk up here and make me?" The Gunt frantically crawled to Jim's doorstep, but the King of Kino came up from behind him and stepped on the back of his head. The Gunt lurched, struggling under his weight, as Jim laughed. "You couldn't even deal with the bum camping out in front of my house. What makes you think that you can teach me a lesson?" "I'll kill you," the Gunt screamed, slamming his fists into the driveway in a great temper tantrum. "I'll kill you, motherfucker." "Look," Jim said, "you couldn't even beat me in Mortal Kombat, and you came here to try and beat me up in real life? Get real." The window closed. The Gunt let out one last scream of pain and rage as the King of Kino picked him up, wound him around, and then threw him. The Gunt went spinning through the air and slammed into the car. The entire thing buckled under the sheer force of his weight upon it. Digigirl let out a cry as she helped him back into the car, casting a dark look behind her at the King of Kino. "This isn't over," she snapped. "Oh, ho, ho, ho." She got into the driver's seat and they were off. The King of Kino watched them go, his eyes narrowed, and then turned his gaze back at the house. Jim's dead body was staring at him from the window. The King of Kino sighed, shaking his head, and then made his way back home, in the great white north. The Gunt, however, was seething. If the lawyer had done his job, that fat fuck would never have dared interfere. He was saying, "That lawyer needs to be dealt with." The car sped off back to whence it had came. No different, perhaps, than a dog running home with its tail in between its legs.